Thank you for coming today. My name is Paul Kalkstein. Please bear with me. I'm about to attempt something that no one has ever done before. I'm trying to pinch hit for Mike Moonves. People of my era were very familiar with Moon's work on the baseball diamond, on the basketball court, and behind the center as a quarterback on the football team. He has been a big supporter of Andover. He's not able to be with us here today, but as a member of the Athletics Committee on the Alumni Council, I would like to pass along our particular appreciation for the leadership that Mike Moonves has given our committee over the last 4 years. It's wonderful to see this group of inductees on the stage, and also to look out and see so many of you, family and friends, who have come to see them inducted on this special occasion. These athletes and scholars are great models for our society as well as for our school. This institution of the Athletics Hall of Honor is celebrating its 9th anniversary this year. At this time, I'd like to ask former inductees who are with us today to please stand and be recognized. Thank you. One of our inaugural inductees, Shirley Ritchie, who was a dear friend of mine, passed away a few weeks ago. Shirley attended this ceremony just about every year over the years, and we miss her presence here and on our campus. She made her marks on the athletic history of Abbott and later Phillips Academies. We want to recognize and particularly thank Dick Phelps, class of 46, and Jim Meade, class of 47, for their vision. Together, they conceived of this wonderful institution about 10 years ago, and really helped us all bring it to life. In 2012, we installed a plaque in their honor that reads, "Phillips Academy and the Alumni Council offer profound thanks to Richard J. Phelps, class of 46, and James M. Meade, class of 47, for inspiring and championing the Andover Athletics Hall of Honor." Could I ask Dick Phelps to stand, please? Since it launched, we have inducted alumni, trainers, coaches, and teams that have spanned 123 years of classes from Phillips and Abbott Academies. These athletes have represented sports across the spectrum, from the gridiron to the track, to the lacrosse field, the soccer pitch, the parquet floor, and the wrestling mats. Today, we induct 6 individuals into the Athletics Hall of Honor. The mission of this initiative is to recognize and honor alumni, teams, and coaches from Phillips and Abbott Academies who displayed exceptional athletic ability on the field and who continue to lead a life that embodies the values of those academies. Before I turn the mic over, I'd like to acknowledge someone else among us. It often falls to the moms in our lives to get us to practices, stay up to date in the schedules, and it's often the voices of these same moms whom we hear cheering for us from the stands. Today, there is such a mom here, and I would like to recognize Carlina Ivory, mother of inductee Titus and son Terrell. Carlina, please come forward. Mark Bamford and Rachel Weiner, members of the Athletic Committee for the Andover Alumni Council, will now present our inductees for this year.
Hi, I'm Rachel Weiner, member of the Athletics Committee and class of 2001. And as part of the Athletics Committee, we have great representation of classmates and former classmates across many of the recent decades. But over the past year, we really wanted to make an effort to dig up some good information about some of the former athletes from Andover who couldn't have representation because the classes are deceased. So our first nominee, or our first inductee, is Charles Bora, class of 1925, and he is not living any longer, but we wanted to honor him today. And Charles Bora came to Phillips Academy from Phoenix, Arizona in 1921. During his time at Andover, Bora was a champion sprinter. At a Boston Athletic Association meet, he was the high scorer for the day and had a winning record-tying time in the 220-yard dash. At a Harvard interscholastic meet, he set a national record in the 100-yard dash. I'm going to keep going, but this is just like a long list of major accomplishments of his athletic career. After graduating from Andover in 1925, Bora went on to the University of Southern California, where he continued to run track. As a Trojan, he twice tied the world record of 9.6 seconds in the 100-yard dash. Pretty big. During his sophomore year, he won the IC4A championships in both the 100 and the 220-yard dash in 1927, and in the 200-meter in 1928. At the 1928 Olympic Games in Amsterdam, Bora was eliminated during the quarterfinals of the individual 200-meter, but went on to win gold and also tie the world record of 41 seconds as the third leg of the American 4x100-meter relay team. Bora graduated from USC with a DDS degree and earned an MD in 1935. Bora returned to Arizona in 1936 to practice dentistry with his daughter. His career, which would continue until his retirement in 1978, was interrupted during World War II, when Bora was called upon to serve in field hospitals under the command of General George Patton. Bora was inducted into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame in 1961. He passed away in 1980.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Bamford, class of 1981. It gives me great pleasure and honor to induct not one but two classmates of ours in this year's ceremony. The first inductee is Jim Herbrick. I met Jim in 1978, the fall of 1978, and we were teammates for 3 years, 3 years of soccer together. He and I and a number of others played for Sherm Drake, who many of you will remember well. We had a great JV team. We were 8-0 and lost our last game to the Concord Academy varsity, but the nucleus of that team was the nucleus of the soccer team for the next couple of years. Jim and I played 2 years of varsity, and we were co-captains our senior year. Jim and I were dorm mates and/or roommates for 7 years at Andover and Harvard, and I had the honor not only to co-captain a team with Jim, but to watch his exploits for 7 years of high school and in college. Jim was really known at Andover as good a soccer player as he was for his accomplishments in track and field. Jim ran winter and spring track. He ran the 110-meter hurdles, he ran the 300-meter hurdles, and he ran the 4x100 relay and the 4x400 relay. Jim has 2 records at Andover that have stood for 35 years. I get back to Andover a lot. My family's from Andover. I've come back multiple times a year for 35 years, and there are certain constants for me at Andover. There's the Bell Tower, there's G.W. Hall, there's Sam Phil, and there are Jim Herbrick's records. If you walk by, and you could literally 80s, 90s, 2000s, when you walk by the track and field records, it would say Andover 110-meter hurdle, record holder, Jim Herbrick. Andover Exeter record holder, Jim Herbrick. New England record holder, Jim Herbrick. National record holder, Ronaldo Nehemiah. and that stood for, I didn't go by yesterday or today, but as of the last time I checked, those are still the names on the board. Jim went on to Harvard and focused on track, both indoor and outdoor track. And Jim has 2 records which still stand 31 years later at Harvard. He has the 400-meter the 400-meter record at Harvard and the 4x400 meter relay record at Harvard. You go on that board. They also have it by year, and those are 2 of the oldest records at Harvard as well. He was a second-team All-Ivy runner his junior and senior year, and he also ran the 200 meters, and he was All-East in 200 meters his senior year. So at the end of our senior year, Scott Amaro and we were about 45 Andover people at Harvard. We all talked about what we were doing. Jim didn't know what he was going to do. By May, he still really hadn't decided what he was going to do, and they put up a poster in the track room, and it said, if you're over 200 pounds and you can run under a 4.540, feel free to come try out for the U.S. Olympic team and the bobsled team. So Jim decided to do that. And what was the equivalent, because we got feedback throughout the summer, of a Navy SEAL experience where they winnowed a very large group down to a small group, Jim made the U.S. bobsled team. Jim spent the next 14 years competing in 3 Olympics and 4 World Cups, first as a brakeman and then as a driver. His highest Olympic finish was 7 in the 2-man at Lillehammer, at Nagano. And he ended his career in 1997, 1998 as the number 5 ranked driver in the world. Jim currently lives in Groton, Massachusetts, and is an environmental engineer and consultant, and it gives me great honor to induct Jim into the Hall of Honor.
Thank you, Mark. I will point out that while Charles Bora won the IC4A 200 meters, I could only manage 5th. One of the things you get to do as an Olympian, or asked to do, it's almost forced upon you, is talk to people about your experiences, and especially talking to kids in schools. One of the things I latched onto, hey, something I can talk about, is capitalizing on your opportunities. And those of us who attended Andover know full well about having wonderful opportunities to advance ourselves, whether it's in sports or academics or other parts of our lives. Certainly for me, joining the bobsled team, becoming a 3-time Olympian was an undreamed of opportunity. But I learned how to make the most of my opportunities here at Andover. And one of the stories I tell people quite often, I know I've used it once or twice this spring while watching my son play soccer. I had an opportunity like that. Mark mentioned our playing soccer. When I came in as a lower, I thought I was pretty good and I ought to have been varsity, and didn't even get the opportunity to try out. So I was really motivated. We got a summer training packet from Coach Price. And there was one little note on there that said, ever play fullback? Well, heck, I'd never played fullback. I was a fast guy out in the wing, trying to score goals. But I knew right then and there that was my opportunity to make sure that I was able to advance. So didn't I work all summer to make sure that I was ready to play fullback? And had a great season playing varsity, was elected as a captain. And that kind of thing stuck with me, is that when there's an opportunity, you need to be ready to capitalize it. And the same thing came for me to make the bobsled team. It was out of the blue. I had no inkling that that was something I could do. Took to it well, and it was the time of my life. I was famous amongst other English-speaking, especially bobsledders, for getting on people's cases when they were grumbling, saying that, a bad day of bobsledding out here in the crappy weather is better than a good day at work. So count your blessing. And I certainly did. And I owe a lot to the lessons I learned here, whether it was on Jack Richards' track team, knowing that everything you did was for the team, even though you're an individual when you're running, that we really were a community. To the frame of mind that I had for when I was trying to run a race was as important, if not more important, than the preparation I put in. So those are lessons I learned here that served me throughout my sports career, and I try to pass them on when I get the opportunity to coach kids or speak to them in situations like this. So I'm very honored, very grateful that I was selected, not only for the recognition, but also for the opportunity to go back in my own archives and relive things that I hadn't thought about in a long time, and certainly was grateful for the experience. So thank you very much.
So our second 81 inductee is Mary Hulbert. At Andover, Mary won 6 letters playing basketball, tennis, and squash. In the winter, she alternated lower upper senior year between squash, basketball, and squash. She focused on squash at Harvard, and we'll get to that in a minute. She was also captain of the women's tennis team. And I had a number of people send me messages about Mary, and what people remember were not her accomplishments or being number one on the team, but her demeanor and her humility and grace, whether she won or lost, and she won a lot more than she lost. When she got to Harvard, she focused on squash, to put it mildly. She was a 3-time All-American, a 4-time All-Ivy. Her senior year, she was undefeated. She was 12-0. And she won the WISA tournament, which was the first time that a Harvard student had ever won the tournament. She was ranked number 1 that year by the College Squash Association, and she won the Betty Ritchie Squash Award, which is the squash equivalent of the Heisman Trophy, being recognized as the best squash player in the country. She's a member of the Harvard Varsity Club Hall of Fame. She's a member of the College Squash Hall of Fame. And she was selected to the Ivy League Silver Anniversary team a few years ago. Post-Harvard, actually during Harvard, she was selected to the U.S. squash team and competed in the World Championships. And the U.S. team placed 6th, which was the highest placing a U.S. squash team had ever had until 2 years ago when that was another team did very well. She played professionally for 2 years. And coached squash at Dartmouth for 2 years as well. She's the founder and principal of True Directions, which is a coaching and consulting company in Western Massachusetts, and it's my great honor to induct Mary into the Hall of Honor.
Well, thanks for those incredibly kind words, Mark. I was totally stunned and surprised sometime this winter to get a call from Mark saying, it seemed out of the blue, and he said, hey, you're being considered for the Athletic Hall of Honor, and I was really shocked. And so it's an amazing honor, and I'm incredibly grateful, so thank you very much. Athletics played a really big positive role in my Andover experience. I remember being a part of the squash and tennis and basketball and field hockey. I got to learn field hockey teams, and it provided just a quick, immediate sense of community. And I was very nervous coming in as a lower, so that meant a lot to me. I remember also thinking that fall trimester, wondering if I would ever actually see a squash court. We had a PE course that involved drown proofing. I don't know if any of my classmates remember this. So you get thrown into the deep end of the pool, hands tied together, feet tied together, and you subsurface float for 3 minutes. And I thought, that's it. I'll never make it out of here. But happily I did. And athletics here really provided me with opportunities to learn a lot of skills, develop qualities that have served me amazingly well in the rest of my life. So learning to work really hard at something and then to see and feel the progress, being able to be fiercely competitive while being friendly and fair at the same time. So just these things have really stuck with me, and And I think probably the most important one being finding something that you really love and you have huge passion for and got a lot of joy from, and being able to pursue that. And I got all those things here. And squash has also really provided me with a way to give back to the community and to connect with people. So about 20 years ago, we moved to Western Mass, where the 5 colleges are, and I played regularly with the #1 players at Smith College in Mount Holyoke. They didn't have much competition on their team, so that was really satisfying to help kind of bring those players along. And while I was in college, and actually after I'd played on the US team, my parents had moved to France. And so I spent the rest of the semester taking courses there and immediately joined a squash club and got to meet all sorts of Parisian squash players, made a few really good friends that gave me a window into kind of real French life in a way, I never would have gotten without squash. So really, really appreciated that. And I think also athletics in here, in particular at Andover, really helped me feel strong and confident and capable and accomplished. And I think especially found that helpful just as a woman, sometimes not feeling that way as much and having that translate into other arenas in my life, whether it was in the classroom or at work or currently in the coaching work that I do, helping executives be kind of the best version of themselves that they can be. I feel like that's part of what Andover gave me through athletics, was tapping into that kind of best version of me. And another unexpected gift of this has been kind of spurred on by the call from Mark. I hadn't touched a squash racket for the last 18 years. It wasn't a planned, absence. It was more like my daughter was born, life happened, and I just sort of didn't get back out onto the squash court. But I got that call from Mark, and it spurred me on to find some people locally to play with. And the past few months, I've been having an absolute blast playing squash again, rediscovering this sport, making a bunch of new friends. So I'm very grateful to Andover for kind of fueling this lifelong passion and reconnecting me to it, for providing me with some opportunities to develop some really essential parts of myself, and for this just really amazing honor. So thank you very much. And I do hear that our head is a big fan of squash. I've got my racket in the car if you want to hit a few.
Our next inductee is Jack Turco, and when we're talking about Andover athletics, the Turco name is often part of the conversation. Jack is class of '66 and a parent to Mark and Scott, classes of '95 and '96, and Molly, class of 2000. Jack Turco came to Andover as a senior from Melrose, Mass., known to its residents as Hockeytown, USA. He started as a quarterback in football, a center in hockey, and a catcher in baseball. After Andover, Turco went on to Harvard College, where he played football, hockey, and baseball for his freshman and sophomore years, and then hockey and baseball for his last 2 years. During Turco's time at Harvard, the Crimson hockey team finished second in the Ivy League twice, and the baseball team made it to the College World Series championship. Turco earned an MD from Columbia Medical School in 1974 and began his residency in internal medicine at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center in Dartmouth, New Hampshire. He began a fellowship in endocrinology in 1977, and a few years later became the director of college health services at Dartmouth College. Throughout his professional career, Turco has managed to succeed simultaneously in 2 roles, as a practicing endocrinologist and as an educator. Centering his work on students, he has been involved with research around alcohol awareness, and most recently with students going through hormone therapy treatment in transgender processes. Despite his busy schedule, Turco still finds time to coach youth groups and volunteer at the Good Neighbor Health Clinic of Vermont. Turco resides in Vermont with his wife, Mary, and their 2 sons, Mark and Scott, and their daughter, Molly, all lettered in multiple sports at Andover and went on to have successful athletic careers in college. We are thrilled to induct you, Jack, into the Athletics Hall of Honor.
Well, it's nice to be here today. I brought a prop with me, and when I heard that I was going to be inducted, I started to think about what I was going to say, and I started to look through the yearbook, the potpourri, and I noticed that actually one of my classmates, Skip Freeman, had written something about our hockey team that year. It's called New England Prep School Champions, and those of you who know Skippy, he has a real eye for talent, whether it be looking across a dance floor at a mixer or watching hockey players. So he wrote this, and this was my introduction to him at Andover, because I came as a postgraduate student. It all began after the Exeter game when Turk waddled into the door to the dressing room, and someone told him to see Scott if he wanted to be an assistant manager, and it never really stopped until they bounced Chris out of the Exeter game with 30 seconds left. So fortunately, Skip missed on the talent one on that one, I think. I was Turk, and Andy Scott was our student manager who kept a close eye on pucks and water bottles. And fortunately, I think Captain Gurry and Coach Harrison must have recognized a twinkle in my eye and figured that I maybe could help out with skates on out on the ice. And that became a really magical season for me because of the improbable friendships that developed. And there was 4 of us who were very different that came together that year. 2 were pure blood preppies who had gone to Andover for 4 years. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, one went for 5 years. And that was Skip Freeman and also Chris Gurry. And then 2 of us were public high school postgraduates. Dickie Delaney from Walpole, Massachusetts, Walpole High School, and Jackie Turco from Melrose High School. And a year before, if you had told Dick and I that we were going to be preppies, we would have probably punched you. And this was a match that was not made in heaven. Somehow we bonded that year, both on the ice and probably a lot of the trips on buses to and from games, and really became close friends by the end of that year, and actually decided to then room together as roommates in college, which we did for the next 4 years. And it's interesting, I think Chris started to call ourselves the 4 Amigos that freshman year in college. And I have to put that in context. It was a very difficult time for Chris. He was waging an ill-fated battle to learn Spanish. And it was very cute how much he liked this phrase, because he was able to put a phrase together that had at least one Spanish word in it. But 50 years later, we stay incredibly close. We've gone through, we've celebrated many highs, and we've supported each other through many lows. And I'm very proud about the fact that we continue to have a close friendship. Now, when I was informed that I was going to be inducted into this Hall of Honor, I was both surprised, humbled, and realizing that, there's many people that can get the call and get tabbed for this, and I really feel extremely lucky to do that. But it also allowed me to reflect back on my time I spent on the gridiron, on the diamond, and on the ice. And some of my favorite and best teammates weren't necessarily the high scorers, the ones that scored the winning goal, scored the touchdowns, got the extra base hits, but were the people that really had passion for the game in the locker room. In the last 2 or 3 days here, I've been able to, and I see them sitting out there, many teammates of mine, both in football, in the hockey, and in baseball, that I really, it's gratifying to see back. One other thing in this 50th reunion has been interesting is that one of the questions that keeps coming up is the same question that came up when we graduated, the 5th year, the 10th year. What was Andover all about? And we've had many different discussions. We've had some of our ABIC colleagues having this discussion this week. But for me, without a question, when I look back at my athletic endeavors at Andover, the games get a little fuzzy. Who won, who scored, and it gets fuzzy. But the friendships that I got have remained forever. And that's the same for Andover. It was a great opportunity for me. So I want to thank the committee for, first of all, nominating me and considering me to be an inductee. But I also want to thank the Phillips 66 classmates who allowed me to crash your class and crash your party for the senior year, because I was just 1 year here, and I really appreciate it. So I'll end with a quote of one of my favorite poems, and that has made all the difference. So thank you.
Next is another popular name when we're talking about Andover athletics, Titus Ivory II, class of 1996. Titus joined the varsity football team as a receiver after coming to Andover as a postgraduate in 1995. In addition to leading the team to an undefeated season and a New England championship that year, Ivory is still remembered by many for what is often referred to as the catch. During the final seconds of the 1995 Andover-Exeter football matchup, Ivory seized a pass to the end zone, securing a victory for Big Blue. Ivory was also a member of the varsity basketball team and track teams. On the court, he averaged more than 30 points per game and led the team to one of the most successful seasons in school history. Recruited by Penn State, Indiana State University, and Michigan State for basketball, and by Notre Dame for basketball and football, Ivory went on to play basketball at Penn State. During the 2001 NCAA tournament, Ivory posted 21 points against the number 5 ranked Tar Heels, helping secure one of the biggest upsets in Penn State history and landing them in the Sweet 16 round for the first time in 45 years. After college, Ivory began an 11-year pro career overseas, during which he won 2 EuroLeague national championships. In 2013, Ivory suffered a debilitating stroke. With great determination and strength, he was able to work through physical therapy to eventually regain movement and speech. Now living in North Carolina with his wife, Nicole, and their 4 children, Ivory works with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department to help curb gang violence and also coaches basketball at a local high school. It is my pleasure to induct you into the Andover Athletics Hall of Honor.
How's everybody doing? I'm truly honored. I want to give all the thanks to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and my wife down here with my 4 kids, and, you know, my in-laws flew into town. I got surprised by my brother-in-law and his girlfriend and my mother and Miss Nancy. I want to thank a lot of people. I know I don't have that much time. I want to thank Mr. Phelps for providing me with this opportunity. I want to also thank all the staff that just touched my life. Andover was a place that just, it idolized the situation that the world represents. The cultures, the people that I met here. I stayed with kings and queens. I stayed with CEOs. I stayed with people from New York who lived in Brooklyn, and they were just the kids that I wanted to be. I was from North Carolina, and coming up here, I just met so many people, and I spoke languages that I'd never spoken before. I read books that I'd never read before, and it was just a great experience for me to come from small North Carolina to a wonderful city I had no idea was here, but just looked exactly like the world looked. I went on to play 11 years overseas, and I was well equipped to do a lot of those things that I did. I was known for the catch. Now listen, when we were going, we were, I think, 7-1 at the time. We hadn't lost a game. Exeter ran on the field, and I thought it was over. They pushed all of them off the field, and they said we had one more opportunity. And people don't know this about me. I'm not a real hostile person, but I think that day I threatened my quarterback, and I said, listen, if you don't throw me this ball, it's going to be a long bus trip back to Andover. So basically, he just lobbed it up there, and I prayed before that, too, that it would just fall in my hands, and it definitely did. And I know my wife is going to be a little embarrassed, but I brought this. And this is, as the stain is not toxic, but it's just what some of my students here did for that event. And I still have the ball in my trophy case at home. My son often watches the game, and I'm the commentator. And so we often replay it in our minds and in our videos. But I just want to thank the Andover community for blessing me with an opportunity. My father, this is the last place my father saw me graduate from. And he passed away my second year of college. But he loved this opportunity for me. My mother and Miss Nancy were on that field that day when that catch was made, walking up and down trying to find me and all that chaos. But it's a true blessing just to be mentioned with people like this. This is unbelievable. I'm going to get some autographs myself after it's over. But I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I want to give a shout out to all my classmates back there who made me feel well at home here. I wanted to go home the first few breaks, but the last few I wanted to stay. And they made it all possible for me. Thank you very much.
So our last, but certainly not least, inductee into this year's class is Chris Gurry, class of 1966. Chris's Andover career, 2 sports, hockey and golf, 4 years of varsity on each sport. Senior year, he captained both teams. The hockey team lost 2 games and was the number 2 ranked prep school team in the country, and the golf team went 14-0. At Harvard, he also played both sports, but was known, and certainly when we were all at Andover, was known for his hockey exploits at Harvard. He was captain of the Harvard hockey team. He set the season and career records as a defenseman for goals, assists, and points. He was drafted twice. He was drafted by the NHL and by the U.S. Army after Harvard. Spent 4 years at West Point and then came to Andover in 1974. And spent the next 40 years of his career at Andover as a teacher, as a coach, and as a house counselor. And I think I just have to take this moment. I can't think of over 40 years of a more rewarding experience for you as a house counselor than 1981, your first year back from sabbatical. It had, of the 40 years, if you ranked them, it has to be the best year. Chris also won the Mother Teresa Award for Patience the following year after they had escorted us off of campus. So, in terms of the points I want to make are with regards to hockey and coaching hockey. As you no doubt know, our hockey ranks are named after Ted Harrison and Chris Gurry. And those 2 coaches represent over 50 years of uninterrupted leadership in the Andover hockey program. It's an amazing accomplishment, it's an amazing achievement, and it's great to go into the rink and see over half a century of leadership and representation there. In 2011, Mr. Gurry won the American Hockey Coaches Association awarded the John Mariucci Award, which was given for the secondary coach, which represented the spirit, best represented the spirit and dedication by a secondary hockey coach. And on a personal note, in Mr. Gurry's last year here in 2014, it was my son's year, Zachary's year here, and he graduated in 2014. And he loved international relations, and he went and talked about a class that he was in. And his favorite class was international relations, and his favorite teacher was Chris Gurry. And I thought that was the Bamfords and Gurrys have known each other for over 50 years. Their families that both grew up in Andover. Mr. Gurry was very good friends and involved in the Vietnam effort with 3 of my uncles. One of my uncles was a very, very good friend of Mr. Gurry's, and the families have known each other for a long time, and I thought it was a wonderful way for my son to tell me what a great experience he had in Mr. Gurry's class and what a great teacher he was. So before I turn it over to Mr. Gurry, could I ask a couple things? Could I first ask for everybody who played on a team with Mr. Gurry to stand up? at Andover or at Harvard. So if you could stay, if you could stay standing, we're going to have a few other groups stand up as well. Can I ask everybody who took a class from Mr. Gurry to stand up? Could I ask everybody who lived in one of Mr. Gurry's dorms to stand up? And could I ask anybody that he coached, anyone who played on one of his teams, to stand up? That's great. On behalf of all of this group, Mr. Gurry, it's my pleasure to induct you into the Andover Hall of Honor.
Thank you, Mark. Speaking last puts pressure on me to let you go early, and I hope I'm able to do that. This certainly is a great honor for me to be here with you today. I've been blessed to be part of the Phillips Academy community for well over 50 years. As a student, alumnus, parent, teacher, coach, and house counselor. The most enduring and memorable experiences of those years have been the extraordinary classmates, students, and colleagues whom I've encountered here. Many are in the Hall of Honor, and I'm truly humbled to join that group today. I am also so excited to be part of this, the class of 2016 honorees. For I have known firsthand each of their contributions to Andover athletics and how tremendous they contributed to the success of Andover. Additionally, to be inducted along with my teammate, classmate, roommate, and great friend Jack Turco makes this even more special. Thank you.
Chris Gurry, I can assure you nobody wants to leave. This is a wonderful event and a great day and a chance to honor all of you. For those I haven't met, I'm John Palfrey, and I'm the head of school. I have the great honor and privilege of closing our ceremony today. But I do want to add a few words to the praise that has been heaped on this crew, and thanks to many who have made this possible. To Rachel and to Mark, fantastic job. Thank you for volunteering your service. Thank you for those wonderful introductions. If we could have a round of applause for Rachel and Mark for that work, thank you. I want to thank also Paul Kalkstein and Dick Phelps and all those who have had such a key role in the Athletic Hall of Honor, which I think is such an important part of our year, an important part of our reunions. Thank you for the leadership you have shown in suggesting this idea and carrying it out and funding it in so many ways. To Paul and to Dick and to all those who have made it possible, thank you so much from all of us. Thank you, too, to each of you who is inducted today, to Charles, to Jim, to Mary, to Chris, to Jack, and to Titus. You honor us with your presence here. You make us all feel better for all the things that you have accomplished. I think you raise us all up through what you've done and the way in which you have met all of the challenges you've overcome, and the ways in which you accepted the award today, which I think was with enormous humility and a wonderful sense of how you did everything so well, and yet with a team and with such enormous gratitude. Thank you for the non-Sibby spirit you have shown, and thank you for your amazing accomplishments that inspire all of us. Could we please have a huge round of applause for the inductees? Thank you. This is an amazing group. I'm always humbled just to be in the room with those who are inducted, no more so, never more so than today in 2016. That's in part because I went to Exeter, and I played on 3 varsity teams, which I don't think ever beat Andover in anything. So those of you in the class of 91, you were probably those in football and squash and baseball that beat me. So I'm always impressed to see this amount of talent in the room. I'm also just so amazed by the accomplishments of all of these individuals and the way in which you have recognized those with whom you have served. And I think it's extremely important that we acknowledge today more than ever the importance of teamwork, the importance of the coaches and trainers and all those who have supported these athletes and our athletes today, and all of those of you who are in their families and have cheered them on so many times, Mrs. Ivory, Mrs. Gurry, and all those who have had such a role in it. I'd love to have a big hand for all those coaches and teammates and players and family members who have supported these athletes and all of Andover athletes. Thank you. 2016 inductees, you've set the bar very high, and I'm glad to say that our athletes at Andover today have been meeting that high bar in very exciting ways, and I want to brag a little bit on behalf of our athletic department and our teams for the kinds of things that have happened just this year. We're then going to have a video, which is a short one, but I think an inspiring one after that to close things out. A few of the highlights that I'm most excited about, in addition to just the great play and the great sportsmanship across the board in our 31 competitive teams, let me just highlight a few. One of the great joys this spring was watching both the softball team and the baseball team win their respective championships. The softball team won its Big East Championship. This was an amazing tournament that actually was held entirely on our campus. If I recall correctly, they won by a margin of 39-1 in total runs scored during that tournament. And it was in the same weekend that an extraordinary Andover baseball team won its Central New England Championship, and it was so exciting just to have these two teams, the boys and the girls, win at the same time in an extraordinary event, and we're very excited to see that. At the end of our Exeter game, Mr. Phelps came back and actually threw the opening pitch to his catcher from 1946, which was an exciting thing, and they edged out the Exeter team in a walk-off, which was very exciting. So that was a key moment. We also had an amazing performance by the girls' varsity track and field team, which were the Division I champions for the first time since 2011. Camille Little, class of 16, ran a 11.94 second 100 meter, which broke the NEPSAC Division I all-time meet record. Camille also ran the 200 meter in 24.89 seconds, setting a new meet and school record in that event. She will go on and run and compete at Rice next year. We're excited to see the records Camille will break there too. Noah Ward, class of 17, had a discus throw of 172.03, which earned him a new school record. The members of the boys and girls varsity basketball teams, under the leadership of none other than Terrell Ivory, traveled to India for a non-Sibi project where they actually taught basketball, much it sounds like in the spirit of what his brother is up to over Thanksgiving break, and showed great spirit on the field as well. The boys varsity soccer team in the fall had a particularly exciting experience where they went down 2-0 to Exeter and stormed back with a hat trick by Brandon Gerard to win that game 3-2, which was extremely exciting. The girls varsity cross country team won the New England Championship with the top 5 runners all earning all New England status. Carmen Bango, class of 16, broke the tape with a first place finish. And I would be remiss to not to mention the girls varsity soccer team. They had 3 shutouts on their way to win the 2015 New England Championship. That was the GVS 3rd championship in the last 9 years. I'm definitely leaving out record holders and awesome teams, but this has been a banner year for Andover athletics across the board. I'd love to have a round of applause for all the athletes this year and all their coaches and leaders. Thank you. Every one of these efforts, whether they're individual or team, are team efforts. We know that they're supported across the board. Athletic Director Leon Modesti over here has a fabulous phrase that he uses all the time, which is team first. And we're going to conclude today, even as we honor these individuals for what they've done, with a video, which is inspired by Coach Mo and all of the great coaches here. And if we might run that video to close out the day, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
At Andover, it's team first. And that's why coaching at Andover is so cool, because our school motto is non-civic, not for self. Well, that has been the credo of every great team that's ever existed, because if you're not for yourself, you're for your team, you'll do well.
Take care of the little things, and the big things will take care of themselves. Blue on two. Blue on two!
First, I look to build a team. That's the most important piece. If we can get a group of kids to work together really well, it's often, a much more successful season than it may have been, even if we had a bunch of superstars.
For a coach to coach here, they have to buy into the culture of Andover, which is one of balance. Yes, we're gonna play hard all game or all practice, but now practice is over. Don't even think about it. Go on to the next great thing.
You might think that the varsity baseball coach would want his guys playing baseball year-round, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I want guys to have the freedom to try something else and to be an athlete. By being an athlete and by using different muscles and being around different groups of kids, you arrive at baseball season more prepared for baseball.
Kids are specializing, often long before they come to Andover. Sometimes it's because the parent and sometimes the student thinks that this is their ticket to get entry into a better college. That's a lot to put on a kid. So at Andover, what we try and do is make sure they're pursuing it safely and with the information they need so that they're not overtraining. Our philosophy is we prepare them. If you get to play in college, you are prepared. But don't forget, you're having a great time with sports now. Enjoy it. We offer over 40 different sports and another 30 activities that kids can try. And that could be varsity football, but it could also be ballet. Some of our best athletes are kids that are doing fencing. There is no such thing as a dumb jock at Andover. Every athlete is truly a student athlete, and the challenge is to meld that great academic institution with a high level of hockey or football or what have you.
I think the most exciting thing is when you get somebody who has had no athletic background at all, and they're competing for their team, and they're showing everybody that they can not only be really smart, but they can also pick up the sport and they start to go really fast. And they're actually winning races.
The kids on your team here are smart, they're athletic, they support one another.
My favorite part of the day is feeling your teammates around you and feeling this common energy that you're all working towards the same goal.
I think a lot of what happens in the classroom filters to what we do outside of the classroom in terms of the values that we teach, like teamwork and cooperation and work ethic and all that stuff. And the athletics field is really an extension of what happens in the classroom.
Before everything we do here, it's safety. Our athletic trainers and our doctor and our medical staff are there regardless of whether the kid scores a point or the kid can get on point and spin around, or if the kid just plays intramurals. They all have the same support and the same treatment. Our wellness center, thankfully, is right near the gym, and the wellness philosophy at Andover is spirit, mind, and body. So we want our kids to be vocationally sound, but we want them to have fit bodies. And you need that full wellness triangle to holistically raise a child. I love it here. Every single day I am charged at 2:45 to 3 o'clock when I start to see our kids, our faculty, our staff traipsing over to the athletic department because they're about to get moving. They're about to get busy. Andover's about to sweat.
That concludes our program. Thank you again to our amazing athletic department, our amazing Office of Academy Engagement, and to all of those who have been awarded today. You are invited to the Stevens Room at the Andover Inn if you would like to continue the celebration, and for the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your reunion. Thank you so much.